everyone. While we're here, I can see a bunch of people whose names I obviously don't recognize. So welcome. Could you just give a little bit of hi, where are people calling from? I'd like to know. I am here from, let me give this instance, Daniel from, anyone else from anywhere else? There we go. Thank you, Andrew. Andrew is engaging. I can see Fortune. I can see Fortune. Could you let us know where you're from? Divine, I can see Divine. Thank you, Andrew from Nairobi. I can see Divine. I can see Daniel Oluwason. Okay, so there's multiple Daniels. Nice to know. I can see Samuel. Where are you phoning in from, Samuel? I can see John. Drops to know where you're coming from. John. Divine from Enugu State. Oh, there we go. Fortune from Lagos. I knew there had to be a bunch of Lagos people here. Hi, Fortune. Hi, Divine. Toluwani from Lagos as well. Nice to have you, Toluwani. Samuel, I still don't know where Samuel is calling me from. Okay. Let me take this down so I can start an intro. There we go. Okay, other people will join us and then hopefully we'll be in full keep-up by the time that they do. So hi everyone. Hi, I'm Daniel. Nice to meet you. Okay, there we go. I see a few people trickling in anyways. But yes, I'm Daniel. Nice to meet you and nice to have you here with us. Yeah, we're here for another workshop. We had one last week and we will be having a bunch of them. And so, get familiar. This happens every week. But I'll give you a quick intro of, why we're here, what we're doing. I will share my screen for a start. Okay, there we go. I'll share my screen for a start, and please let me know when you can see it. Last week I had screen sharing issues, so hopefully this week is kind to me. I think it will be. There we go. This one. Okay, can you see my screen? Anyone see my screen? Thumbs up. Any bit of engagement to let me know you can see my screen. Yes, okay, there we go. Lovely. Thanks everyone. All right. So yeah, we're here because we've been talking about this thing called the artificial future for at least a few weeks now, and the question we get all the time, which isn't that surprising, is why it's called the artificial future, and it's nowhere near as convoluted as anyone might think. We're calling it the artificial future because with AI in the picture now, the future is going to change, whether we like it or not. And it is our genuine hope, I think all of us at YPIT, that the future changes for the better. So very simply, that's why it's called the artificial future. If this future changes for the better, I guess, going into why we're doing this or what the vision is, this future is changing for the better. I think we as Africans need to be very intentional about defining what that better looks like for us. It means we cannot just be consumers of this tech, this AI that is changing the future. As we say, we must also actively participate in its production and apply it to our very, very specific African context where we can. And so Silicon Valley will not do that for us, unfortunately. We have to do that for ourselves. And before we put this together, the AF, before we put the artificial future together, we spent some time understanding what's possible for us in AI. How far behind are we? How far ahead is the rest of the world? And I think it was interesting. The answer is that not very far behind. It's not that bad. It's not bad at all. The ambition is there, very, very clear. And what we just need is to close the rest of the gap, so to speak. I mentioned active participation, shaping this future. What does that look like? If you're closing the rest of the gap, it means we must understand the tech. We must understand what AI is. We must understand, we must know how to build with it, and we must know how to use it. We must know how to apply it to our context and how it applies to us. And yeah, so that's why we designed this thing called the artificial future, and we had in mind 3 pillars when we designed it. learning, building, and discussing, because we think that's how change happens. That's how, to actively participate in this future. And, in those three pillars, there's, like I said, learn, build, and discuss. So for the learn pillar, we have, designed 6 weeks of skill building workshops, webinars and workshops, delivered by experts like Andrew, amongst others, people with impressive profiles that are pushing change at the frontier, at the top of what AI is doing. People that are actively engaged there, they're coming to distill a lot of that knowledge to us through workshops. In the build pillar, we have what we call hackathon. We have a hackathon, I think, running from the end of May. So from May 30th, I know this is 29th, but from May 30th until June 6th, where people get to, I guess, in this specific case, get to apply a lot of the things that you learn into building, being very creative about what you can build. Our hope is that a lot of those projects, those hackathon solutions, hackathon projects go on to become businesses. It's part of what we have designed this for. And the last pillar is discuss. So on June 13th, 2026, at the Civic Center, Lagos, we will be having a full-day conference. These three pillars, they are not isolated. They all work together. Active participation means you first of all learn what is possible. You learn how to engage. You learn what to do with the tech. Building means you then learn how to fashion the tech, for ourselves, for our context. And then discussing means you meet people like Andrew, you meet, founders that are solving very, very niche cases, which is interesting. Institutional investors, companies that are being very ambitious about what AI looks like for Africans in the near future. Everybody's going to be at the conference. I think if you're here, you should be looking to get involved in all of these three pillars. So thank you for, at the very least, engaging in one of them, which is this. Thank you, Samuel. I like that. And then the last, I guess you might ask, why are we talking about MCPs today? Why is Andrew going to be talking about MCPs? I think, putting it simply, Paystack is they're a leader in African finance, African fintech, and I think finance is an important part of empowerment in this new future. Like TLDR, in short, AI will touch your money, whether or not you like it. And so I think we're more than happy to have one of the leaders in African fintech, to have one of the experts talk to us about MCPs. MCPs, the discussion is obviously a very specific tool, but it's an example of that, that statement that we must start familiarizing ourselves with tech, with how things work, whether or not we want to, because, like I said, we're in the artificial future. And so I suspect that, developers or, some of the more technical people will find a lot of value in this discussion today. I think everyone should find some value in it. I'm interested to know, Paystack, these MCPs, there's a bit of involvement in the hackathon part and in the conference part as well, which we'll get to, but stick around and let's see what's possible here. All right, I will pass over to you now, Andrew. I'll stop sharing my screen at the same time, actually. There we go. The party is yours, Andrew. Take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel, for that wonderful introduction. Like Daniel said, my name is Andrew. I work for the DevRel team at Paystack, and basically what we do is helping developers succeed with Paystack using different tools, different resources available to us. So today's talk will be a little bit technical, but I'll try to introduce the topic at a very high level so that you're able to understand what MCPs are, how they look, and maybe you can experiment with them towards your hackathon projects. So allow me to share my screen real quickly. Let me know if you can see my screen. Thumbs up. Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you, Divine. All right, cool. So on the subject of the artificial future, today we're going to talk about MCPs. I'm Andrew, like I said, dialing in from Nairobi, Kenya. That's where I'm based. So in case I sound very different, it's just because of where I come from. So cool. So what is MCP? So before we start with the definitions, maybe before we start with the technology, we should take a step back and look at the current problem with the future, with the present future we are in, which is AI driven. One of the things is that AI agents are very good at analyzing, but they don't have visibility into our businesses. The other thing is they have outdated static information. So every new model holds information that was maybe 3 or 4 months old. The other thing is they hallucinate a lot and are very confident when they're giving you the hallucinations. And one of those things that has come to fruition recently was the Internal Affairs Department in South Africa had to fire a whole team after one of their policy documents was found to have AI hallucinations. In AI hallucinated references, citing sources that don't exist by authors who have never written on that topic. And so here comes MCP. So MCP is an open source standard that enables AI clients, AI agents to communicate with external and third-party systems. If you think of JSON or if you think of REST, MCP is the REST for AI systems. So with this image here, on the left, we have our AI clients, code editors, cloud desktop, all these AI applications. And then on our right, we have our existing tools, our databases, our Slack, our Git, and all of these things have different ways of communicating, of exposing information. And so what MCP does, it centralizes, it creates a protocol, a simple protocol that the agents and the existing systems, so our Git, our databases, can expose to each other for bi-directional communication. So if you think of, if you're working on a large project and there's a GitHub ticket that has had a discussion that has gone on for maybe 5, 6, 7 weeks, rather than having to copy the whole thread and then sending it to AI, you could just integrate an MCP server and ask Claude to summarize for you the discussion points of that ticket. And this is especially important if you're working in a private repository. Other examples include, you could have a Slack thread summary. You could even send information from maybe your chat interface and analytical information from your chat, but you could send an analytical request from your cloud desktop all the way to your database and then get back a summarized version of your business performance. So some of the components, MCP is powered by 3 major components: resources, tools, and prompts. And I know we're familiar with prompts, which is pre-written templates that allow agents to perform the task. But resources, they allow servers to provide data and context to these agents. So for instance, they could be static files. You could have a static file that passes or has CSV information from your DB. It could be database schemas, so a layout of how your application DB works, or even how the API and your API requests and responses are supposed to behave. This is especially for people in development. You don't want your AI agent to be hallucinating endpoints, to be hallucinating or assuming how your APIs work. Then tools is that empower the agents to take action. So this is where action is done. You hear, an agent has sent 1,000 emails from the chat, and that is what the tools are, and definitely need to be created with limits. So for some of the examples we've seen happening with tools are creating new orders, getting customer information. So you're asking, who's the newest customer? How are my customers performing? Or even sending invoices to existing customers who may have dropped off. These are some of the actions that AI agents are able to take with your existing system. So you've connected your Claude to your APIs. And this is done through MCP, and the tool is what gives it the power to take action. And then, like we mentioned, prompts are structured messages that the AI agent uses without having to guess too much what the user wants. The LLM agent can also customize them based on the parameters you've passed. So you could have a you could have a prompt, for example, give me the last 5 users in table form. So then that exists, and it knows so the agent knows that, okay, you want the 5 users, and then you want it displayed in a tabular format. That can be changed. If you tell them 15, the agent is able to take the prompt, change the 5 to 15, and then execute a tool that will find the 15 users that you've requested and render it in table form. A few other ones are for transactions, because we're in payments. A lot of people talk about transactions as well. And so that too can be a prompt. Cool. So I'll stop here real quickly, maybe pause for questions as I set up a demo of our sample app, just showing you how MCP can be used in real world situations. Daniel, are there any questions that have come in while I set it up?
Divine has his hands raised, so please go ahead and ask Divine.
Good evening, everyone. My question is, what is the difference between MCPs and APIs? I'm currently taking a course here on MCPs from Anthropic, so I'm quite stuck between the difference between MCPs and API, because I'm kind of like modeling the two of them up together.
I can answer that for you. So the difference is that APIs are for computer-to-computer communication, server-to-server communication. Think of it as you have Paystack, and then you have your application, your e-commerce store, for example. So what Paystack offers and your e-commerce store is what they will communicate over. So it's web-native communication protocol. Meanwhile, MCP is AI agent specific. So let me come here and show you. So it's a protocol, just like we said web, but it's a protocol between now your AI agents, so cloud, desktop, and the likes, and now your existing systems. Think of your web app, think of your PostgreSDB, think of even GitHub, think of all of that information that you need to bring to your AI client so that you guys can have an AI, you guys can have a proper conversation, a proper analysis without it making up stories. So without MCP, for example, let's say I give you an example of transaction data. Without MCP, you'd have to go download the transaction data, feed it onto Claude, and then now ask it to do an analysis. With MCP, you can automate that. You can automate that directly from your your AI client. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Andrew. There's one more question. What guardrails do you usually put around tools so that an agent can take action safely?
Right. Yeah. So for guardrails, you always want to have tools that do not do distractions, and then you also limit them on the capacity. So you cannot do send a million invoices to one customer. Those are some of the ones you put in your skills file for your agent. So you can put limitations on things that it shouldn't do. It shouldn't take all full action on everything. You should limit the range of how much it can do. Those are some of the guardrails, and you can put them also in your prompts, because prompts is also instructions. So you can have important: never do X, never destroy customers, never refund more than 100 transactions, for example. And that means that the agent will stop and say, from my instructions, I'm told not to do this. And if you do prompt it to proceed and it does proceed, well, you can also add it in the code to have limit checks also in the code, especially in the tools, because the tools are actually normal JavaScript code, as I will show you just in a minute. Yeah.
As you were thinking, I was thinking of an analogy that I don't know whether I read it somewhere or I heard it somewhere. It's like, the agent is a person and a tool is the knife that you give them, or let's say the gun that you give them. Guardrails on the person means you've told the person, never shoot, like you tell the police, never shoot on sight, or never do X, never do Y with your gun. But a guardrail on the tool is that you give them maybe a gun that only has blanks, that there's no bullets in it, or a gun that has a safety, or a gun that can only shoot X ones. Sorry, I'm using guns as an example, but that's but yeah, that was an analogy I heard somewhere that brought this to light. So thank you, Andrew.
Yeah. Cool. So let me start just by the demo. So we have our productivity app. It's a simple store. I think, Daniel, you can post the repo for it. It's just a simple store where you add cart, you proceed to checkout, pass your name.
Okay, so I've just put in the chat, yeah, your MCP, I think.
Yeah. Cool. So this person, we've made order, we've made a purchase and all of that. It's a simple e-commerce storefront, but at the moment, my AI agent has no visibility into the actions or what has just happened, right? If I launch Claude right now, without setting up an MCP here, Claude has no context onto what is happening on my business, what new stuff has been ordered, right? I'll just give that a minute, and then I'll take you through the structure of the application, just so that you guys can get started and see MCP in practice. So cool. So this is our repo. It's in Node.js, it's in TypeScript. So we have two things. We have the regular server, which is, handles the routing, handles the database interactions, as well as the redirects, right? But
yeah.
now we have,
Andrew, can you just check with the crowd? How many people have like the GitHub open or even understand what's going on? Just a show of hands. It's fine if you don't. Just checking that there are people. Okay, there we go. All right. There's a few people.
okay.
Have this up. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. I could go slower. So so what's happening here? This is the three things so we have only two things that I mentioned. So we have tools. So basically this is what tells the MCP agent what to use. So we have a tool called users tool, and basically what it does is it takes the prompt, defines, can I see a name? Yes. Can I see an email? Yes. So what does the user want me to do? It's either fetch or add. That's the action. And then we also have items. So this is for the items you saw listed at the front of my store. That's another tool. So it can add new items. It can fetch existing items. And then we'll scroll down to resources. So this tells the agent when it connects to the MCP, the first thing the client does is to read the resources to get an idea of, okay, what are we expecting? So I've told it, under this URL, sales items, you'll get all the items, and these are the APIs, and this is the API you call, and this is how it will come. So get items, for example, is defined in the database as simple select, from my order table, select from my items table, order by this. So basically, if you can build a backend or a server that interacts with your services, your database, then you can expose it using tools and resources, and that way the AI agent can take action in a structured manner, can take action, can read from your systems in a structured manner. That is the basic description of what is happening here. So we just have simple things: fetch an item by ID, fetch all purchases, and the likes. Cool. So let me launch now Claude. Let me see whether my Claude has woken up. Not yet. Good. Here we go. Cool. So we now have Claude here, and if I ask it anything, tell me how my sales store. So now it's trying to find out which one, what store is this you're talking about, and all of that. So we need to set it up. We need to tell it, point it to where the information resides. So I can go ahead and now show you how to configure Claude Desktop. So if you come to depending on the platform you're using, Claude has a Claude Desktop config.json file. So basically, this is where you add custom information for your Claude Desktop client. And again, this is so MCP supported Claude, Windsurf, and Cursor, as well as VS Code. So we can also set it up on VS Code as well. So let me add the Claude, my MCP server. We'll do that. All right. So in Cloud Desktop config.json, you just add your MCP server. So you can call it a name that you like. So I called it Sales MCP. It's running on Node because it's built on Node. And then this is the path to the dist folder. So not the server folder, not the static folder, but the build folder. So we are just going to go ahead and build it, and then relaunch Claude as well. So let me relaunch Claude. Let me close Claude, and then run the build script for this. Cool, so that's built. And then now let's start Claude one last time. Hope this time it's faster. Boom. All right. So to find out whether your MCP or your client is exposed, you come to your connectors, and this is it, Sales MCP. So once it's switched on now, if I ask it, what can I ask it? What have I sold today? Oh, this week. Put it in table format. Let's go. So remember, tools and resources. And then here, Claude wants to use some items from Sales MCP. This is one of the other things that's cool with MCP. There is always a man who is giving it advice, human in the process, human in the loop. So let me show you the tools it has loaded from our MCP server. So it has understood that purchases have an item ID, quantity, and a user ID. So these are that's the thing that makes a purchase a singular purchase. It has also read that the user's format is like this. And then it's also looking at the items. So it has passed my prompt into the relevant data it will need to fetch from my MCP server. So let me go ahead and allow it. I couldn't have sold that much today. So if we look into the API calls it's making, you'll find that it's calling these database functions. So get items. And then now when it gets the items, now it's summarizing it by itself. And here you go. 2 notebooks on 5th May. Item is a ceramic coffee mug. Okay, let me ask it, what's its name? Let's see. Cool. So yeah, so that is MCP. We can also run the inspector, which is something I also wanted to show. The inspector, what the inspector does is it allows you to see all the tools and resources available on your MCP. So for example, if you clone an MCP like Paystack or Stripe or the likes, you can just check and get all the resources available to you. So this is it. It has loaded, a list person's resource, and then also the tools. You get all the tools available. So you can query the MCP just to see whether the tools are working and whether you've set it up correctly on your local host. So the inspector helps you see whether you've set up and run the MCP correctly locally. So I'll just quickly head back here to my presentation and talk about the benefits. Cool. So like I said, MCP is connecting different systems together, bringing them together through a shared protocol. So similar to how REST is able to allow different systems. So from your server to email to even Paystack, that's the same thing MCP is allowing. So from your agent to your systems to all other external systems, MCP works. The information shared, so the information transmission is accurate and relevant, only for coding. So expected client, any other client. So once you can plug a local machine if a different developer is using, let's say, for example, your developers are using different AI editors. So you can plug them together and have the person using Windsurf is still able to fetch real life customer data without having to make a lot of configs or changes to your MCP server. Then there's also faster and more accurate AI development flows. And this leads me to our Paystack MCP. Oh, before I get there, and I'll show you accurate development flows through our Paystack MCP server. But yeah, if I was to summarize what MCP is, it's a USB-C for AI tools. So nowadays with USB-C, anything can be powered, can be charged, can transfer information like that, better development experience, and then you are sure about accuracy. And then the last thing, for your business, for your product, you get up-to-date information. And like I mentioned, Paystack, we also have our Paystack MCP server. So if you can, Daniel is going to drop drop a link right now. You can install it, run it via Node one, and because I hope you guys are all using Paystack for your build for the hackathon, and then try testing it and questioning it on different things about your business integration, and you will see that that information is piped all the way from your Paystack integration to Claude to all the other MCP compatible clients. So I will stop there, come to the end. This is time for Q&A, and I hand over to Daniel.
Lovely, thank you, Andrew. Isaac has his hands up, so Isaac, you get to go first. If we're waiting, we can't hear you yet because you're not speaking, but please feel free to go ahead. Okay, can't hear you, Isaac, but in the meantime, Divine, you can go ahead and ask Isaac. You can just put it in the chat.
Okay, I have a few questions. The first one, I think I heard when our speaker said something about if with a team of developers and then different AI agents, that means they can use MCP to create a kind of like connections between. So is it like there will be no more need for like of repo or something like that? I don't know if you get my question.
I think I get your question. Okay, so I think I have understood the question. What happens is, yes, you'll still need GitHub repo, but the example I was giving is if you imagine that one of your developers is on VS Code like myself, and then somebody else is using Cursor or Windsurf, right? When they want to use AI agents to build code, that set with one MCP server that we have. If we deploy it to prod, all these developers can plug into them, test their integrations, test what they're building, and they'll get similar results, regardless of what platform they're building on.
All right, thank you. I have 2 more questions that I have written down.
Okay.
The other one is, can MCP support multiple agents collaboration? I think you already answered that. And how do they do that? And the second one is, how do you prevent context bloat or irrelevant memory accumulation with MCPs?
I'll answer the second one first. So for the content bloat, I think the first thing is with the resources. Try and minimize how much resources you are loading and the size. We did the same thing with our Paystack MCP server. If you go check, it only has, I think, 1 resource, and that resource is a file that reads our OpenAPI spec. And then the tools, similarly, is just 2 tools, I think, get and post. I've forgotten the interior, but basically what we did is we reduced the number of tools and the number of resources exposed. That way, the context window is not overloaded with information. So what we did is it passes our server passes the OpenAPI spec, but doesn't present all of it to the MCP server, to the client. Instead, the client will go and ask for, okay, I'm looking for users, and then check from the past OpenAPI spec. That's just how we do it. For the first question you asked, I am not entirely sure. So you're meaning you want agent-to-agent interaction via MCP? Is that what you were asking about?
Yes, yes.
I believe it should be possible. I think because it's a structured communication protocol, I think both agents can communicate over it. The only thing is, why would you need to use MCP for agent-to-agent communication? Because its main purpose is for non-AI native systems to plug into AI systems.
If it helps, there's been I think Google, the way Anthropic came up with MCPs and released the standard to the world. I think Google also spent some time working on A2A, so that's agents to agents protocol, and also releasing it to the world. So in the way they've designed MCPs to make sure AI agents can talk to other systems, software systems, there's also similarly a protocol that allows AI agents to talk to other agents in the exact same way that MCPs work. So if you're looking for that kind of use case, that will probably be the tool that you should use, A2A. Okay, nice. Still back to you, Andrew. Any more questions? I know Isaac's hands are still up.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good evening. Thank you for the session, Mr. Andrew. Okay, how do I frame my question now? I'm a non-developer. How can I easily apply MCPs to my workflow without having to know too much about coding? That's my first question. Secondly, with this ability that Paystack MCPs give you, what are the possibilities of things you could build or automate? Then the third question, are there any restrictions to how we can use these MCPs or what we can use them to build?
Yeah, those are very good questions. Let me think. Give me a minute to just digest them. But I would say for non-developers, I think if you find, for non-developers, if you find a platform, for example, Paystack and the likes, who have MCP servers, then you can plug them into your AI clients so that they can fetch real world information. So one of the things we are exploring right now with the Paystack MCP is how to, right now it works as a developer tool, but how to turn it into a business tool. And that means it's able to use live transaction data and give you information on it. For that is a work in progress. I can't promise on timelines because we're still in the exploratory stage. But when you come across MCP anywhere as a non-technical person, just try and set it up for your systems based on, like, Stripe has a very good, powerful MCP. And so you can connect it to cloud, you can connect it to whoever, and it can perform actual live actions on you. So that is how you got. So think of MCP as helping you to connect your existing workflows to AI, or your existing AI agents to traditional, let me not call them traditional, but non-AI native systems. Yeah. I hope that captures the answer, the gist. Yeah.
Yeah, if it helps, Isaac, if you go to Claude, there's a section there where you can customize, and in customizing, it has this thing called, is it connectors? And connectors allow you to connect, quote unquote, an MCP to many tools. So to like your Gmail, to your apps, to even Canva for design. So I, for instance, have MCPs connected to my email where I can just tell Claude, hey, I've been talking to people about workshops in the past few months. Like, who are the people I've been talking to and what can they do? And it goes into my email and it brings that out. So all that to say, find something that is very, very, very low level, very easy for you, so that you get an idea of what is possible with MCPs, and then you start to understand better, okay, how can I apply this in other creative ways?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So there's 2 more questions. I wrote them down so that you don't forget. Feel free to tackle them in whatever order.
Okay, so yeah, what can Paystack MCP let people build? One of the things we are proud of, or at least I can brag about, is like when you connect Paystack MCP to your AI agent, as a developer, you get more accurate code results, particularly when generating use cases that are not very clear. For example, you want to generate SaaS business with split payments, for instance. Before the Paystack MCP, you'd find the whether it's cloud code or whoever, they hallucinate Paystack endpoints. But once you start running the Paystack MCP, it starts giving you very accurate endpoints with even all the params, including the optional ones plus the required ones. The second thing is that we have trained it to use best practices. So whenever you deviate from our best practices, the agent will mention it, and that's because of the context it has loaded from our MCP. But like I mentioned, our MCP right now is a developer tool, meaning it will work localhost and with your test API keys, not live business API keys. But it will speed up your development, particularly if you have nuanced edge cases that you want to work with on Paystack. Are there restrictions on how MCPs can be used? I'm not sure what that question means. Maybe Daniel, you can answer.
I mean, it's kind of the same way someone asked earlier about guardrails. If you're designing MCPs, you have resource, you have tools, you have prompt, and you already mentioned on the resource you can set guardrails. So for instance, like in your Paystack example, you said, you only use one resource, or you can make sure that the MCP only has access to 2 databases, not 3 databases, or not 4 databases. So that's the way you can restrict, as an example. You can also restrict the tool that the MCP has access to. So if it's a web search tool, it can only run 5 searches at a time, or you can only run 10 searches at a time. Those are some examples of restrictions, which you've already covered anyway, Andrew.
Yeah, okay, I've gotten it. Yeah. As well as just restricting the DB calls and the likes that Failure in terms of an MCP system. Not sure I've gotten that. Maybe Daniel, you could get me that one. Yeah, not sure I've gotten it.
What does failure look like? I'll go back to the three ways that you broke down in NCP server as well: resource, tool, and prompt. Failure, for instance, could look like, even though you used an MCP, you said, "Oh, how many customers did I have yesterday?" And it still gives you the wrong answer. That's the failure. And there are multiple ways that could have happened. So it's a case of the resource could have failed, the tool could have failed, the prompt could have failed. So like maybe instead of using the web search tool, the MCP decided to use a wrong tool, or when it was searching on the web, it put in the wrong search term. Maybe you ask, "What's the weather in Lagos today?" And it instead gave you the weather in Lagos, Portugal, because there's 2 Lagoses in the world. So that's an example of something you wanted the MCP to do that it didn't do well. So in which case you define it as a failure. And the reason why that could happen is because maybe the MCP doesn't fully understand the context around exactly how to use the tool, or it doesn't fully understand, how to refer to certain resources over the other. So for instance, you have 2 databases and you ask, how many customers did I have? And it's checking the one for, another shop instead of your website. So that's there are multiple ways that, a prompt can go wrong, a tool call can go wrong, or a resource pinpoint can go wrong when using an MCP. And I think it ties back to the original question, which is reinforcement learning with MCP. So every time it also goes wrong, like Andrew said, every time it goes right, you update your skill file, or you update your knowledge for the MCP so that it knows how to do better. Same thing happens when it goes wrong. You also go back to update and say, "Hey, you did this wrong the last time. Can you make sure, this guardrail is in place, this guardrail is in place?" If it means maybe you give it access to more tools, or maybe you find out that it has too many tools and then it's not able to call the right tool at the right time, you restrict the access to tools. So those are the ways that like your MCP can evolve over time based on things that are happening, based on the failures it experiences, etc., etc. Does that help cover your question, Divine?
Yes, it does. It does. Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you, Andrew. All right then. Okay, no more questions. We are at time. I think that it's actually probably now that it's worth saying. Carl has one question. Okay, Carl, will come to your question once I'm done. There's a session tomorrow. I'm going to put the link in the group chat. It is called Personalized Software in the Age of AI. And the reason why that why that session is very important is because Jeremiah will be talking about how he built a personal finance tool. So in very close to the example Andrew has been mentioning, Jeremiah, had the idea that, "Oh, I want to be able to talk to my bank account. I want to be able to ask, how can I afford this holiday that I want to go?" And he realized you have to connect, many things to your bank account. You have to build this app. And one of the core ways that I did it was with MCPs. And so I think for anybody on here today, tomorrow's session will be a very, very practical way, because Jeremiah is going through the practical building process that some of you are asking for, that very detailed process. So he'll be there tomorrow to just talk about how MCPs, amongst other tools, were part of how we built very personalized, very unique software. So when someone was asking what's possible now that MCPs are around, that's an answer to your question. Anything is possible. You can decide that you want to build apps to talk to your bank account. You can decide that you want to build apps to talk to your e-commerce store. You can decide that you want to build apps to basically do anything. And I suspect for the near future, MCPs will be a big part of that. So if you're around, please show up tomorrow's session. I've also put the link in the group chat. We are having it tomorrow just to build on top of today's conversation that Andrew has led so very well. So I'll pause here so that you can go back to, wait, before I do those, thumbs up, a little bit of thumbs up if you're going to sign up for tomorrow's session, just so I make sure people come. Thank you, Israel. Other people, please thumbs up. I need to see everyone here. And then, Carl, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, all. Me being a new beginner, a curious beginner into AI fields, new hearing MCPs. So how am I going to apply it in real-world experiences?
Say it again.
Being a curious beginner in the AI field, how am I going to apply it? I'm new learning the word MCPs. So how am I going to apply it in a real-world situation?
In real world situation, I think the example I gave before is a very, very practical one that you can start literally today. Like I said, I have MCPs connected to my Claude, and it is connected between Claude and my meeting notes. So I have this tool that I used to record every meeting. Today's meeting is an example. So every time I go to Claude and I say, people go to Claude and say, what's the capital of France? Now I can actually go to Claude and say, I had a meeting yesterday, and in that meeting, I want to know what next I should do tomorrow. Claude will use the meeting MCP to go to that app, that tool, that software, and figure out what meeting I had, figure out what the conversation was, and then reply me based on that. So, maybe you don't use that app for your meeting, but Gmail is an example, Canva is an example, Google Docs is amazing. You can tell Claude to work in your Google Docs and it will do things for you. So those are some very, very practical, beginner-friendly ways that you can start to involve MCPs in your workflow.
Okay, thank you, Abshit.
Amazing. Thanks, Carl. Any more questions? No more questions. Yeah, at this point, very, very well done to wrap up. Thank you very, very much, Andrew. I would like to, everyone should just do a little bit of a clap for spending time and for giving us such a detailed exposition into what MCPs are. It makes me very excited for everyone. By the way, so one thing I think we are going to start doing, even with the sessions last week, is we'll start sending across to you guys a lot of materials. I think, for instance, based on some of the questions that you guys have asked today, just send across PDFs, materials, all these questions of how to do MCPs, where it comes in. For instance, I'll work with Andrew to do a bit of a guide on Paystack MCPs and an example. And I think Paystack is interesting because you should be at the hackathon every 1 year. It doesn't matter how good you are at coding, but we'll make sure you have enough resources to build things, for instance, on top of Paystack's MCP. So come ready before the hackathon comes around. We'll make sure you have enough material. But have it in mind. Start thinking of very creative ways that you could use AI. Yeah, please show up to the hackathon. Very excited to you guys as part material, both for beginners, for the more technical people, for the people somewhere in the middle. Yeah, that's all I have. Check out the website, theartificialfuture.com, get involved. I've shared the link to our Luma. This workshop is the second of 8 workshops. So ideally, I would really love for you to be a part of every workshop. The next one is tomorrow, and then there's a couple of workshops coming in the weeks after that. So I've just put the workshop calendar link in the comment section. Sign up to the calendar so that every workshop that comes on, you get a ping, you get to know about it. I believe everyone should be at every workshop, but I'm very sure a few people will find the ones that are specifically interesting to them. The idea is to have such a broad range of conversations that by the time all of this is over, you're very clear on how AI applies to you, how it works for you, and you're significantly more upskilled in participating in the artificial future. So thank you everyone for joining. One more pause to just check that no one has any final notes or questions. None? All right then. And then thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate the time. Bye everyone. Have a lovely rest of your evening. Bye.
Bye.